One of the hardest things to come to terms with is that not everyone clapping for you is truly happy for you. And that realization can sting because we crave connection, belonging. We hope that our light doesn't cast a shadow over someone else, but sometimes it does. And not because we're trying to outshine anyone, but because we dared to show up fully, vulnerably, and honestly. Let's talk about jealousy. Not in the gossipy, petty, finger-pointing kind of way, but in the real, uncomfortable, human way. Jealousy is a mirror. It reflects more about the person feeling it than the one it's aimed at. And yet, when you're the one receiving those sideways glances, the backhanded compliments, or the subtle cold shoulders, it hurts. It's confusing. Sometimes it even makes you want to shrink. But let's be clear, someone else's jealousy is not your fault. It is not your responsibility to dim your light to protect other people's comfort. Still, it's important to recognize when you're in the presence of it, because how you respond will either drain your energy or protect your peace. One of the most confusing and emotionally disorienting experiences in any relationship, whether it's a friend, a colleague, or even a family member, is when someone gives you a compliment that somehow doesn't feel like a compliment at all. It sounds nice on the surface, but underneath it carries a sting. It's subtle, often hard to call out, and leaves you second-guessing yourself. You know the kind of comments I mean. Must be nice to have everything work out for you, or wow, I could never be bold enough to wear something like that. It might even sound like, you're so confident. I wish I didn't care what people thought like you don't. These statements are wrapped in pleasantries, but they carry an undercurrent of resentment, comparison, or veiled criticism. These are backhanded compliments, and they're often one of the clearest signs that jealousy is in the room. Here's why they're so powerful. They offer the speaker a way to release their discomfort without fully owning it. Instead of saying, I feel insecure when I see you doing well, or I wish I had what you have, they twist that feeling into something that sounds like praise, but actually undermines you. It's emotional sleight of hand. You feel the sting, but can't always pinpoint the source. What makes this especially hard is that as humans, we're wired for connection. So when someone delivers these kinds of statements, we often respond by trying to soothe, explain ourselves, or make ourselves smaller just to preserve the relationship. We tell ourselves, maybe I am being too much, or maybe I did come off as arrogant. But more often than not, you're simply being yourself. And their comment isn't about you, it's about what your presence is bringing up in them. Now, this doesn't mean we go around labeling everyone jealous or cutting people off without reflection. Sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. It's a defense mechanism. It's pain masked as sarcasm. It's envy dressed up as humor. But once we see it clearly, we can decide what to do with it. The key is not to internalize it. Don't make their discomfort your burden to carry, and don't let backhanded words reshape how you see your worth. Because the truth is, people rarely throw shade at those standing still. They do it when you're moving, when you're growing, when you're shining. So when those backhanded compliments come your way, recognize them for what they are, a reflection of someone else's inner tension, not a reason to question your own light. Let's talk about something that's hard to admit out loud, how quickly connection can become competition when jealousy enters the room. Relationships at their healthiest are built on empathy, mutual respect, and a deep belief that there's enough space for everyone to thrive. But when jealousy takes root, it quietly rewires those dynamics. Suddenly, instead of being seen as a friend, a peer, or a collaborator, you're seen as a threat, and often it happens so subtly that no one names it, but you feel it. What used to be shared joy turns into a scoreboard. You get a promotion, instead of celebrating with you, they compare. You finally take the trip you've dreamed of, and instead of asking about it, they mention how they've already been there. You speak up with confidence in a meeting, and they respond by questioning your experience in front of others. These aren't accidents. They're defense responses. Because somewhere inside, that person isn't thinking, wow, look at what's possible. They're thinking, why not me? Jealousy turns us into me versus you. This is the dangerous shift. What was once a space for connection becomes a silent battleground of subtle digs, withdrawal, or emotional distance. And it's painful, especially when the person is someone you care about. because you're not trying to compete, you're trying to share, you're trying to grow and bring others along with you. But when someone hasn't done the inner work to process their own insecurities, your wins don't inspire them, they trigger them. Here's the hard truth. People who see life as a zero-sum game, where your success means less room for theirs, will struggle to stay genuinely connected when you start to rise. And that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to notice when the energy has shifted, not to attack, not to retaliate, but to set clear emotional boundaries. Because if you keep trying to maintain connection while someone else is secretly trying to keep score, you'll exhaust yourself. You'll start shrinking, second-guessing, even subconsciously underachieving just to keep them comfortable. Let's be real. We've all been on both sides of this. We've all had moments when someone else's joy brought up our pain. That doesn't make us bad, it makes us human. The difference is whether we recognize that feeling and use it as a mirror or a weapon. Do we get curious about our own jealousy, or do we project it outward, turning our relationships into arenas? In healthy relationships, we choose curiosity over competition. We say, that triggered something in me. Let me look at that, instead of, who does she think she is? In healthy relationships, we hold space for both. I'm happy for you, and this is bringing up some hard stuff for me too. That's vulnerability. That's courage. That's connection. So if you feel like someone in your life is subtly turning your growth into a game, step back, not out of bitterness, but out of love for yourself. Connection is built on trust, and trust can't exist in the same space as quiet sabotage. Protect your peace. Keep showing up fully. You weren't made to play small just to keep someone else from feeling small. Your job is to rise with integrity and let others choose whether they want to rise alongside you. Let me know if you want this formatted into a visual quote card, video monologue, or part of a mini ebook or workshop. There is something profoundly liberating about naming what's really going on. Awareness, real, honest, self-reflective awareness isn't just a soft skill, it's a superpower. It's the moment the fog clears, the moment your gut speaks louder than your need to be liked, the moment you stop gaslighting yourself just to keep the peace. Because here's the thing, people can behave in subtle, confusing, even hurtful ways, and if you're not aware, you start to absorb that behavior as truth. You wonder if you're overreacting, you internalize the tension, you shrink, you try harder, you walk on eggshells. But awareness gives you language. It lets you say, wait, this isn't about me being too much. This might be about someone else feeling not enough. Wait, that wasn't a compliment, that was a disguised criticism. Wait, I don't feel safe here, and I don't have to convince myself I do. That's the power of awareness. It puts you back in the center of your life. It doesn't mean you become cynical or start seeing enemies where there are none. Quite the opposite. Awareness helps you stay grounded. It lets you respond instead of react. It helps you see situations for what they are, not what you wish they were. Awareness is also the starting point for boundaries. You can't set a boundary if you don't know where the breach is happening. You can't protect your peace if you're too foggy to see who's draining it. Jealousy, when left unchecked, creates emotional static. But awareness cuts through the noise. It allows you to acknowledge something here feels off without needing anyone else to validate that for you. That clarity becomes your compass. And maybe even more importantly, awareness gives you compassion. Because once you see clearly what's driving someone's behavior, you stop taking it so personally. You can feel the sting of their actions without letting it rewrite your worth. You can love people and still hold them accountable. You can say, I see your pain, but I don't have to be the one to carry it. This kind of awareness doesn't make life easier, but it does make it cleaner. And cleaner pain is always better than messy confusion. Cleaner pain says, this hurts, but it's real. Confusion says, this hurts, but maybe it's my fault. One frees you. So the next time you feel tension in a relationship, whether it's jealousy, resentment, or quiet disconnection, pause. Take a breath, ask yourself what's really going on. Listen not just to their words, but to how your body feels in their presence. Your awareness will tell you more than their approval ever will. Stay with it, stay awake, stay rooted. Because when you know the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, you don't have to dance around it anymore. You get to decide how you move forward with clarity, courage, and your power intact. Let me know if you'd like the next point in this style. You're not responsible for other people's discomfort with your growth. Let me say something that might feel both freeing and deeply uncomfortable at the same time. You are not responsible for how others react to your growth. Read that again. We live in a world that teaches us, especially those of us who've been conditioned to be peacekeepers, to be likable, to not rock the boat, that our job is to keep everyone else comfortable. Don't be too loud. Don't be too ambitious. Don't take up too much space. Don't shine too bright. Because if you do, someone might feel threatened or left behind or not enough. But here's the truth, that's not your burden to carry. Your growth, your healing, your evolution, your courage to say yes to yourself will inevitably make some people uncomfortable, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're becoming highlights they're staying the same. Your expansion can serve as a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look into that mirror with honesty. And when people feel uncomfortable, they often don't say, wow, I'm being triggered by your growth. What they do say sounds more like, you've changed. Don't forget where you came from. Must be nice to have all that free time for self-care. Why are you being so intense about your goals lately? And what they do might look like withdrawing, mocking, gossiping, or minimizing your efforts, because watching you break cycles or pursue something bold reminds them that they've stayed where it's safe. But their discomfort is about their relationship with themselves, not with you. Let's be real. There's grief in this. Sometimes the people who cheered for the older version of you won't show up for the newer one. And that hurts because we want the people we love to grow with us. We want them to clap when we rise, but not everyone will. And their inability to celebrate you doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means your paths are no longer aligned, and that's part of life. You do not owe anyone a smaller version of yourself just to stay in their comfort zone. Let me be crystal clear here. Protecting your peace, your energy, and your joy does not make you selfish. It makes you responsible for your own emotional well-being. And that's the kind of responsibility that creates real freedom, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Because when you honor your truth, you invite others to do the same. When you stop shrinking to fit, you model what it looks like to live without apology. When you keep showing up, even when it's awkward, even when it's lonely, you give others permission to rise too. So if your growth is making someone uncomfortable, offer them compassion, not self-abandonment. You can be kind without making yourself small. You can love them without betraying yourself. Growth is not a betrayal, shrinking is. You're not being too much. You're just becoming more you, and the right people, the ones rooted in love, not fear, will adjust their eyes to your light, or they'll find their way to their own. But either way, you keep going. You weren't made to fit into other people's stories. You're here to write your own. There will be moments in your life, maybe you're in one right now, where you feel like your light makes other people squint, where your joy feels too loud, your confidence feels too bold, your honesty feels too intense. And the reflex, the very human reflex, is to shrink, to dial it back, to soften your voice, to camouflage your success in self-deprecating humor, to explain away your confidence just so no one feels threatened. But let me tell you something, with all the love in the world, your light is not too much. It's just unfamiliar to people who haven't yet allowed themselves to shine. And if you spend your life shrinking yourself to stay digestible, you will never know the full strength of your own power. Now here's the nuance, because life is full of nuance. Shrinking and compassion are not the same thing. Compassion says, I see you, I know you're struggling, I honor your pain. But compassion does not require self-abandonment. There's a version of compassion that doesn't ask you to fold yourself into smaller and smaller shapes to keep someone else from facing their discomfort. True compassion says, I will stay soft toward you, but I won't disappear for you. I can offer empathy without editing my joy. I can honor your insecurities without betraying my gifts. The world needs people who are willing to show up fully alive. And fully alive doesn't mean perfect or polished or popular. It means you show up without apology for who you're becoming. It means you take up space in the way only you can, not to overpower anyone, but to embody who you truly are. And yes, your light may stir up things in other people, insecurities, wounds, fears. That's not cruelty, that's contrast. That's clarity, and it's not your job to dull your glow to keep everyone else at ease. Let's say this clearly. You can be humble and still own your strength. You can be kind and still shine unapologetically. You can be compassionate and still say, I will not make myself smaller for you. Because here's what happens when you shrink. You start to fracture. You start to doubt. You start to forget the sound of your own voice. You confuse other people's reactions with your identity. And eventually, the cost of being palatable is authenticity. And authenticity is everything. So instead of asking, am I too much? Ask, am I being honest? Ask, am I rooted in love? Ask, am I honoring what's true for me, even if it makes others uncomfortable? So if the answer is yes, then keep going. You are not too much. You are too rare. And the world doesn't need more people who've learned how to shrink. The world needs more people who've learned how to stay rooted in compassion without erasing themselves. You don't owe anyone a diluted version of yourself. Not to make them comfortable, not to make them stay, not to keep the peace. Yes, jealousy is real. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it can show up in people you love, people you trusted, people you never expected to pull away when you finally started to rise. But your growth is not a betrayal. Your joy is not arrogance. Your voice is not too loud. The real work, the courageous work, is staying awake, aware, compassionate, grounded in your truth, even when the ground beneath your relationship starts to shift, because it will. Growth will cost you something. Sometimes it costs you the approval of people who only love the version of you that didn't challenge their own reflection. But let me remind you, you were not born to play small. You were not meant to carry other people's projections. You were not built to spend your life apologizing for who you're becoming. You were made to evolve, to expand, to rise. And that rising, it doesn't have to be loud or flashy or public. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a boundary. Sometimes it's walking away from someone who keeps trying to clip your wings. Let your growth be rooted in truth, not spite. Let your compassion include yourself. Let your light remind people what's possible, not because you dimmed it, but because you refused to. So if someone is uncomfortable with your growth, let that be their invitation to reflect, not your cue to retreat. Because the world doesn't need more people who've learned to shrink. The world needs you fully, freely, fiercely, exactly as you are. Keep rising.